What is going on, everybody? I hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be building another PC, and what makes this one a little bit more special is the case. So this is the Geeek A50 Plus in white. It's a mini ITX case that you have to assemble yourself, so it's one of the only cases I know that are like that. Personally, I would prefer if it was just shipped as a whole unit so you can save some time, but it is what it is, and hopefully it's not too difficult. But yeah, it's a super tiny case, and the goal of this build was actually to replace a laptop, so we wanted something portable and something that's going to be used for Adobe Premiere Pro and Photoshop and similar type software. So I really wanted to focus on the CPU and memory more than anything else. But yeah, I'll show you guys the parts, and we can go from there. Alright, first up we got the CPU, and this is the Intel Core i5-10400F. It's from the new lineup of Intel CPUs. It's got 6 cores and 12 threads, so it should be perfect for the purpose of this build. In case you're wondering what the F stands for, it just means that it doesn't have the integrated graphics card, so you do need a discrete card, which I do have for this build. So it saved about 40 bucks, which actually almost paid for the price of the card, so not too bad. Moving on, we have the motherboard. This is the Asus B460i Gaming. By getting this chipset, you save a lot of money, and we won't really need any of the additional features that the other chipsets have anyways. So it's a really good way to get a great board at a fair price. For storage, we got the Western Digital Blue NVMe drive, 500 gigabytes, really good stuff. And I also got a 256 gigabyte Sata 3 drive, so this was a really good deal. For a little bit of extra cooling, I got the Arctic 92mm fan. It's 4-pin, so I'll be able to control it from the motherboard, so great stuff. In terms of memory, we got the Kingston HyperX Fury. This is a 3200 megahertz kit, 16 gigabytes worth. We're probably gonna be upgrading this to 32 gigs later down the road, but for now it should be more than enough. So I wanted to get a good power supply, so this is the Corsair SF450. It's a 450 watt, which should be more than enough for this build, and it's gold rated. I actually have a similar power supply for my personal build, and it's super quiet and reliable, so really big fan. Now for the CPU cooler, I did splurge a little bit because I wanted it to be relatively quiet. So this is the Noctua NH-L9i. It's kind of like a tongue twister. But this is an amazing CPU cooler. I'm sure a lot of you know it. And this is the black version, which obviously looks a lot nicer than their stock one. So really excited to install this. Now this is where it gets a little bit interesting, because for most people, I actually recommend doing this if you want to save money on your build. And that is buying everything new and just getting the graphics card used. And the reason being is because there's a lot of people selling graphics cards for whatever reason, maybe because it's last gen and they want to upgrade, or they're just not gaming anymore and stuff like that. So I'm almost certain you can get a really good deal on a graphics card. And because there's gonna be no gaming going on this computer pretty much at all, I wanted to save money there, but still get a discrete graphics card. So I got the Gigabyte GTX 1050 Ti. This is the 4 gigabyte version, and it should be more than enough for this build. And I bought it used for dirt cheap, so it really helped bring the cost of the build down a lot. But yeah, something to consider, and it's not pretty looking or anything like that. But yeah, I'm excited to test it out and see what kind of performance we can squeeze out of this thing. All right, so those are the parts. I'm gonna start assembling the case, and hopefully I don't destroy it. Okay, so that took way longer than expected, but here I am, and the case is pretty much assembled. It's good enough to the point where I can start building in it. The manual is kind of odd, like it would say one thing and then the next page it would say to do a completely other thing. And those metal nuts that they use is kind of odd. I can't help but think they could have used something else, but Not too bad overall. I really like the way it looks, so I'm really excited to see it finished. But man, yeah, that took way longer than I thought, but let's go ahead and start building in this thing. Now, one more thing I forgot to mention is I have this Deep Cool RGB strip. Now, to be honest, it's actually a spare one from an old build that I didn't end up using. So I'm not too sure if I'm going to put it here, but if I do find space for it, I might add it, and you know, it might look nice, might add like 10 FPS to it too, so something to consider. The Geeek A50 Plus build is now complete. A couple quick tips off the top of my head is run the 8-pin motherboard power connector underneath the motherboard tray before actually closing the bottom panel. Because if you close the bottom panel, the connector itself won't actually fit. And that's a mistake I did, and I had to kind of tear the whole thing apart again, which was not fun. But that's definitely avoidable. And one more thing is when you're installing the GPU riser is don't use the washers, even though the manual says so. Because if you do, the graphics card is gonna come out looking crooked from the back. And all I did is took out those washers and then it was perfectly straight, which brings me into my next point is that because it's a custom case, there's a lot of oddities that you won't normally see on an over-the-counter case. So that's kind of one of the trade-offs you get for the uniqueness of the case. Like for example, I didn't realize that there's no dust filters at all that come with it. So you're gonna actually have to use your own filters, or you're just gonna have to keep cleaning it every now and then because it does get dusty really fast, which I've actually noticed on my case because it's only been a couple days and it's already building up dust. Although it is very quiet, the Noctua CPU cooler is doing a great job, and the graphics card and the power supply don't even turn on until like about 30 to 40% usage. So the thing is dead quiet, which is really great. Now to talk a little bit about the appearance, anyone who's gonna be walking into the room, this is the first thing they're gonna notice. It definitely stands out, which is something I really like. And another big plus I'm sure most of you agree on is the size of it. You can build a really great system in a case like this, similarly to the Dan A4-SFX, but this one is actually a little bit wider, so you can fit a wider CPU cooler. Also, one more thing I noticed that definitely was not planned is the RGB LED strips actually create a kind of glowing effect on the glass itself. So when you're looking at it head on, it looks as if the glass is lit up itself, which looks really cool in person. I also super glued the cable just to give it a cleaner look, and that thing's not going anywhere. So there's a new feature that a lot of these new motherboard manufacturers added for the new 10 series lineup. And in this motherboard's case, it's called Asus Performance Enhancer or something like that. And basically what it does is it unlocks the voltage for the CPU so that it can turbo higher. Now I'm not too sure, but I can probably assume that this is gonna void your warranty as well. So if you're gonna do something like that, just keep that in mind. So yeah, I'm gonna be running the XMP profile. I'm gonna be doing the Asus Performance Enhancer. And I don't know if it's possible to overclock the graphics card because it doesn't have a 6-pin, but I could try it. it, but who knows what's gonna happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that with you guys and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so I have no idea what's gonna come out of this, but let's go ahead and test it out and see what happens. All right, so we're now in the BIOS. The first thing I wanna do is enable XMP so I get the actual speed of the memory. All right, XMP1. Okay, I'm gonna change this to 3200 megahertz, which is the speed it's supposed to be at. And then this is the one I mentioned earlier, so Asus Performance Enhancement. We're gonna enable it. Okay, I guess we enabled it, so that should be it. Just gonna save and reset. All right, so I've just installed Core Temp and CPU-Z and GPU-Z, so we can actually see what the heck is going on. Okay, so right now we're hovering around 4.1 gigahertz or 4 gigahertz, and that's for idle. We're not really doing anything at the moment. So we got about 4% CPU usage. So let me just check the specs of this quickly. Okay, so base frequency is 2.9 and turbo is 4.3. So we're already hovering around that. So I'm gonna run some Cinebench and see what we get. Okay, so 1297 for the Cinebench score, but we never really passed 4 gigahertz running that test, so I'm gonna try to figure out what the heck is going on. So it doesn't even look like our memory got overclocked here. So something's not right. I'm gonna have to go into the BIOS and see what's going on.
A few moments later.
So as you see, it says here 3200 megahertz with the correct timing, which is what it should be running at. I'm gonna change this to auto as well for now. And then I'm not sure if you can actually adjust the voltage. I think it's gonna be automated. So we'll see how that goes. Actually, you might be able to. Okay, so you can override the voltage. I'm gonna leave it on auto for now, and we'll test it later. So let's boot it up. Okay, so for some reason, I can't get the memory to go to 3200 megahertz, which is what it's supposed to be running at. So I'm gonna try the other XMP profile and see if that fixes anything. But so far, that's kind of weird. All right, so to my disappointment, I just found out that apparently RAM is hard locked on B460 platforms. So yeah, if you plan on overclocking your memory, don't get a B460 or H460 board, H470, sorry. Just go ahead and get a Z board, because I saw XMP on the motherboard profile page and I figured it would reach that speed. But for i5s and i3s, it's locked to 2666 megahertz, and for i7s and i9s, it's 2933 megahertz on that platform. So that kind of sucks. I'm a little bit bummed out about that, but I am going to be running it at 2666 for now, and I'm going to tighten up the timing a little bit. And then I'm gonna still continue to do the test as I mentioned. So I'm gonna get that going right now. Okay, so I've enabled the Asus Performance Enhancer. On the first Cinebench run with stock, I got 1303 score. So I've just enabled it. I'm gonna run it again and let's see if there's any difference. Okay, so we got 1304, which is 1 point higher. And the voltage pretty much stayed the same, so it's not even doing what it's supposed to. So that's really odd. I'm gonna figure out what's going on, but yeah, that's no significant difference at all. All right, so I just set the voltage to 1.25. So I'm gonna check it and see if it makes any difference if you manually do it yourself. So let's find out. Okay, so after a bunch of back and forth, the Asus APE feature doesn't seem to be really doing anything. Well, especially in Cinebench, that is, because that's really what I'm testing right now. But I tried setting the voltage manually. I even tried playing around with the settings. And yeah, it doesn't seem to be doing anything. And I know the CPU cooler is capable of handling it with the increased power limit. It doesn't even seem to be running that much hotter. So I don't know, maybe I'm doing something wrong, guys, let me know. But I'm still gonna include the benchmarks, and I'll try to include as much information as possible. And yeah, I'll post that now, so I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you liked it or found it somewhat entertaining. If you want, leave a like or comment or subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a good one.